Hi, my name's Dylan Walker and I'm the founder of wilderlife.org, the organisation that helps you to rewild the places where you live and the food that you eat. And today we're going to talk about how to coppice trees like a beaver. Beavers are incredible animals that we have lost across the United Kingdom, and it's made our habitats all the poorer. Why? Because beavers are ecosystem engineers. That means they actually engineer the habitats and improve biodiversity. If there's a beaver in your landscape, there's going to be more wildlife and more other animals. Why? Because beavers cut down trees and they cut down branches, and they use those branches to create dams and slow down watercourses. This is fantastic for reducing flooding across floodplains, but also brilliant for wildlife. It reduces pollutants in water because they drop into the sediments as the watercourse slows. It's better for fish that like to breed in these slow meandering parts of rivers. And it's just fantastic for wildlife generally to have more water and wetland habitats available, something that we've lost across the landscape in the UK. Beavers have to chop down trees, and they do it in a way which we call coppicing. This is where you cut the tree down almost at the base level, close to the ground, and then the beaver carries that tree trunk away to use for its own purposes. But this is also fantastic for biodiversity. Coppicing enables new growth in the forest. It opens up light areas to allow things like butterflies to thrive, and basically allows for regeneration. And so many of our tree species in this country thrive with this kind of impact from coppicing. So trees like ash and sallows and willows, for example, and alders absolutely love coppicing, and they thrive on it and recover and regenerate very, very quickly. And by doing that, they actually sequester carbon. They absorb more carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So this is a win-win for wildlife. So what are you thinking? If you haven't got a beaver in your back garden or on your land, that doesn't mean you can't go and coppice like a beaver. And today we're going to show you how. So what I've got here is what looks like just an old piece of trunk or branch that's been cut, but actually this has been coppiced by a beaver. So if I show you this closely, you can actually see the tooth marks of the beaver, and you can see that it's cut the trunk to a point, allowed it to fall down, which we need to be careful how we do that if we're going to replicate these processes, and then the beaver has carried the trunk away to build its dam. So we are going to try and replicate that process, and the way we're going to do that is quite simply with a hammer and a chisel. So let's get started. Now we've chosen a nice piece of sycamore here, not too big, not too difficult to cut, and the branch is sloping nicely away from us, so we've had little danger in terms of chopping the trunk down. We've got to be really, really careful when we chop down trunks that we do it in a way that doesn't involve the branches or the trunks bouncing back on us, because we don't want to get hurt. So be super careful about how you do that. Let's get started. So as you can see, we're starting to make some progress. And doing this job really makes you realise just how incredibly strong and what amazingly sharp teeth these beavers must have. And what they seem to do is to basically cut from the bottom and the top of the area in which they want to coppice the tree. So they're effectively using their teeth to cut in here at the bottom, and then cut down from the top until they get to a point where this is narrowed enough that the weight of the trunk falls. They run out the way and they have a nice branch for their dams. Now, we could take a saw and we could just cut this straight off and it would have the same coppicing effect, but it's nice to replicate the way that these ecosystem engineers like beavers actually did things. For one thing, it really makes us appreciate the hard work involved and of satisfaction when it all comes together. But secondly, there are all sorts of benefits that we just don't realise when we don't replicate things as well as the animals themselves. For example, there are loads of wood chips on the floor from doing it using the chisel and the hammer already, which you see when beavers do the same thing. Now, if you cut the tree with a saw, you're not going to leave any of these nice little natural wood chips on the floor, which could be used for nesting material, or might just rot down and just be good for the soil and some of the soil invertebrates and worms. So you just don't know the benefits of this stuff. So let's try and keep going like a beaver and see if we can get there. So we're now in a different section of the same piece of woodland, and I just wanted to show you the value of coppicing. This is an elm tree which we coppiced about a year ago. Didn't use the beaver coppicing technique, we just used a handsaw, but it's to the right height for a beaver coppice, and you can see the amount of regeneration. So you can take all of these lovely new shoots you can see here that have regrown out of the trunk, so fantastic regeneration. It's wonderful stuff. Look at the leaves, fresh new leaves coming here, and so this will develop and grow into lots and lots of smaller trunks which will get larger and larger and larger, and that's why it was so good for coppicing in the olden days. We used to use these branches for various things like fencing and also for making wood charcoal. So all of the woods in this area would have been coppiced traditionally by people, and it would have been better for wildlife because it was replicating what beavers and other animals such as elephants, which we used to have after the last glaciation in this country as well, and would have knocked down trees. So this is a natural part of the ecosystem that we're replicating, and you can see the value and importance of it here by looking at this elm. So we've managed to chop down the tree beaver style, but the proof is in the pudding. Let's see how close to a beaver we actually were. So let's compare. We have our tree trunk that was cut by a beaver here some time ago. You can see that it looks quite old, and if I zoom in you can see the fine tooth marks from the beaver, those incredibly strong sharp teeth. And this is my effort. You can see the shape is fairly similar. Not quite as strong markings that I've managed with the chisel, but nevertheless the same impact. Really pleased. Nice piece of coppice woodland as a result. Now the thing about beavers, they don't just go down chopping all of the trees in any one area. They're much more selective about that. What they tend to do is they'll chop down one small tree in an area, and then they'll wait for a number of years, and then they'll come back and chop another one. So it's very selective, very small scale coppicing, and it allows for larger trees, younger trees to develop. So you've got a range of different tree ages, lots of regeneration, lots of sunlight coming into the woodland. Absolutely perfect for birds, butterflies, insects and other mammals. So they really are incredible ecosystem engineers. Go out there and try being a beaver. Let's substitute the beavers while they are returning to this country, and let's make Britain wilder again.